All right. So I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to watch the cultural summit yesterday. You know, of course, it was an opportunity to honor our cultural icons and our top 100 winners, or agents who placed in the top 100 within the region. But there was also three very motivational speakers. Diane Kokoska is the one I'll show a little clip from today. Just before we get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about using mindfulness strategies to manage stress and how it can help us manage stress. I think that Diane talks about her perspective and becoming the person we need to be to reach our goals. And I think that's been very consistent and something we've been talking about throughout these mindful morning moments. Moving forward, starting next week, we're going to be highlighting a different 6 personal perspective each day during this time. I'm super excited about that. I think we've touched on some of them, like limiting beliefs and, identifying the activities that you need to do to meet your goals. And that's the 80-20 principle. So I'm really excited to clearly explain kind of the relationship between the two. But like I said, today, we're really going to talk about using strategies to manage stress and just realizing that you have the tools available to you already. So we'll just get started here with watching about 5 minutes of Diane. Now it's a short clip. She spoke for about 30 minutes. So I do encourage you guys to block out, I would say like an hour if you just want to watch the 3 panelists that spoke yesterday. Mike Brody is the first one. I cannot remember the name of the second speaker. He wrote the book Running the Sahara, and Diane Kokoska. I think those 3 parts definitely have a lot of value. So we'll go ahead and get started here with Diane.
It's 5-6 hours a day. I've got 2 more that I'll be on yet this afternoon. And just want to speak hope into people. Today, I'm just going to share my perspective. It's the only one that I have. And feel free to borrow it if it works for you, okay? Because see, we're all aware of what this coronavirus is doing. I mean, it's doing things to people's physical bodies. And yet I think that we're completely underestimating what this pandemic is doing to our souls and to our emotions. There's a large emotional and psychological toll that's happening on people's insides and how it's affecting our minds and the way that we think about things. Now, we all want to be healthy, and so we remember that being healthy isn't just about what you eat. It's not about the exercise that you get or what you're doing. It's mainly about how you're thinking. So why do our beliefs have such an effect on our lives? Why do limiting beliefs keep you from your goals? How do you reject limiting beliefs? See, all these things brought Bold about when I wrote it back in 2009. Oh, wait, that was when our company was at the lowest. There were market centers not making money and people dropping out of the business right and left. See, out of problems comes opportunity. And one thing I know that, have you ever seen a bird's egg? And they say, or if the turtle eggs down by the ocean, don't bother them. You know why they say don't bother those eggs? Because see, if the egg is broken from an outside force, life ends. It's over. Yet if an egg is broken by an inside force, life actually begins. It has to come from within. It can't come from without. In fact, one of the things that Dennis Waitley taught me way back when, and that came to fruition, as Charles said, there will always be that one defining moment in your life, right? And it came after having my property management division where I was taking care of 72 houses. And make a long story short, I had a lady who was taking all the rent checks, putting them in her bank account, and taking the mortgage checks and putting them in the trash can and sending the sellers out their checks. And I didn't watch my money. Totally my fault, right? Had lots of money, making lots of money. Life was really good. All of a sudden, I found myself with people having 3 months behind on payments. And you go, how did that happen? Oh, yeah, they called me. And I sent in the check for the late payment, didn't know what happened. And of course, with this gal being pregnant, she had all sorts of excuses, and I bought into them. Bad leadership, buying into people's excuses. Reasons are results. You can't have both, right? Now, the interesting part, as I sat in the closet, thank goodness for Wendy, right? I went to Wendy's hamburger place because they gave away free crackers at the time. They were out there. I'd gather up all those crackers, bring them home, and I'd make dinner for my kids, and I'd eat crackers in the closet. Now, I don't tell you that story to say poor woe is me, because I'd already told you I brought it on myself. I wasn't a victim. I was going to be a victor, though. And Dennis Waitley taught me this one phrase, and boy, did I learn how to live it then. You got to do within while you're doing without. You got to do within. That means you got to be the person inside of you to make it work on the outside of you. Great things always become and begin from the inside. See, Mark Twain said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. So I trust all of you are open to putting more into you. You know, this morning, toothpaste, I don't know if you have those tubes, and sometimes it's really challenging to get it all out there, right? So we have this little device, and you put it on the end of the toothpaste and you roll it up, and the toothpaste comes out. Well, I rolled it a little bit too tight, and the toothpaste came out of the tube, and it kind of went all over, and I went, oh boy. And then I thought, you know what? So good that we're not a tube of toothpaste, because I couldn't get that toothpaste back into that tube. We're not that. We can put new things into us. And we got to put new things into us right now, because growth is the only opportunity that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And growth on the inside, first it's put into my mind, and then it's shown on the outside. I mean.
All right, so like I said, it's just a short clip. But I hope that gives you a taste and makes you want to go back to watching it, because I really love how she talked about, you know, how we have to start with our thinking first, right? And how our thoughts influence our behaviors, and that we're able to, you know, take in new information and change our behavior in order to achieve that growth. And I think one of the major components of that, obviously, because I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, is incorporating mindfulness practices. And I wanted to highlight today 9 ways or some ways that mindfulness reduces stress, because there is, you know, scientific proof of a lot of this. And I've seen the benefits in my life as well. You know, the mindfulness practices, you know, being mentally healthy was a part of my personal GPS this year. And it's something that on my personal GPS is stayed consistent. If anything, I've ramped it up, right? Not only am I meditating every day, but I also took on, you know, teaching this to our agents, not only because I think it's important, but it also holds me accountable. And it helps me learn more about something that was one of my strategies to reach one of my personal goals. So I'm so glad that you guys are participating in this today. So a couple ways that mindfulness helps reduce stress is you become more aware of your thoughts. You know, if your thoughts are not putting you on the path to reach your goals and to become, you know, externally the person you want to be, right? Because it has to start internally. The first step is being more aware of your thoughts and what they are. I you know, when I first started kind of practicing these mindfulness practices, I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety, and my thoughts would really run away from me, and it didn't feel like I was in control of it. But, you know, as you become more aware, you start to notice things that might trigger you, or you start to notice thought patterns and, you know, what might not be true, what is just a false narrative that you're telling yourself. So becoming more aware is really important, because you can take a step back and not take your thoughts so literally. You know, they're not facts most of the time. It's, you know, what you've kind of been ingrained to think through potentially, you know, very stressful or hurtful situations. So becoming aware of your thoughts is absolutely that first step. Step 2, you don't immediately react to a situation in practicing mindfulness. Instead, you have a moment to pause and use your wise mind to come up with the best solution. So mindfulness helps you do this through those mindful exercises, right? We're not attaching meaning to everything as soon as it happens. There's this idea of acceptance, which we'll talk a little bit more about definitely. And mindfulness switches on your being mode of mind, which is associated with relaxation. Your doing mode of mind is associated with action and frequently that stress response. You're more aware and sensitive to the needs of your body because, again, being aware of your thoughts. You may notice pains earlier and then take appropriate action. You may notice yourself getting a little worked up, right? So you can take a second to take a couple deep breaths to calm yourself down and get back to what you're doing. You're just more aware of your body and how you're feeling. You're more aware of the emotions of others. As your emotional intelligence rises, you're less likely to get into conflict. You might be able to recognize when someone's having a bad day, you know, when their tone's a little bit different or they seem more stressed, and you're able to, you know, adjust in how you work with them, you know, making it easier to have those working and family relationships as well. Your level of care and compassion for yourself and others rises. The compassionate mind soothes and it inhibits your stress response. So we talked about that loving kindness meditation, right? And wishing well for yourself and wishing well for others. Just seeing yourself more as a member of a community, right? In mindfulness. And if you're extending that care and compassion, it might be easier for you to extend care and compassion to others, and it helps you learn to apply it to yourself. Or maybe it's easier for you to apply it to yourself, but then you learn to apply it to others, and that reduces a lot of frustration, right? If you know, are unhappy with someone else's behavior, but you can see what contributed to making that happen, it's a lot easier to diffuse that frustration because you're like, oh, I probably would have reacted similar if I was in a similar situation. So it does, you know, help strengthen your relationships, which can reduce stress as well. Mindfulness practices reduce anxiety in the part of your brain called the amygdala. So the amygdala is central to switching on your stress response so effectively that your background stress level is reduced. So it does start to kind of change the wiring in your brain, you know, with these consistent practices. You're also better able to focus. So you complete your work more efficiently, you have a greater sense of well-being, and this reduces your stress response. Again, this is something that helps me because, again, just that more awareness of my thoughts. You know, so if I am working on a project, I notice myself getting distracted versus before I would just get distracted and kind of, you know, how many times have we been working on a project and then we get an email and we drop everything that we're doing to respond to that email, and then we go back to our email, and then it's the end of the day and you never went back to that project, right? But now with these mindfulness practices, you can catch yourself and say, oh, wait, that's not, you know, I'm getting distracted right now. I'm going to finish what I'm working on, and I can come back to that, you know, in 20, 30 minutes when I'm done working on this task. You're just able to catch yourself more and be more, again, aware of your thoughts and aware of your actions as opposed to reactive and just reacting to things that are happening to you. You're in more control, which can definitely help your stress, right? If at the end of the day, you accomplish these 3 big projects that you set to accomplish, instead of running around responding to emails, you're going to feel much less stressed out about the workload you have on yourself. You can switch your attitude to the stress. Rather than just seeing the negative consequences of feeling stress, mindfulness offers you the space to think differently about the stress itself. Observing how the increased pressure helps energize you has the positive effect on your mind. So how many times do we create stress for ourselves through procrastination, right? I'm totally guilty of this. And at getting a deadline and not working on the project until like maybe a day or 2 before the deadline. And that is creating stress, but then you can use that stress to motivate you. Maybe that's how you get your best product. I know in college, that's absolutely how I wrote my best papers. I might start a draft a couple weeks when the assignment was made, but at the end of the day, like I spent the days before that paper was due working on it and produced some of my best work. So, stress isn't always negative. It's part of life. And again, mindfulness just really helps you kind of switch your perspective with that. So I'm going to show this short animation that talks a little bit about accepting the mind, including stressful factors.
Still pool of water. Think of the mind as a still pool of water. Each thought is like a raindrop. It creates a ripple on the surface. If it starts raining very hard or is perhaps a little windy, then the pool might become so cloudy that we can't see what's on the bottom. But the potential to return to our still pool of water is still there. In fact, by training the mind, the ripples naturally begin to slow. And as the surface of the pool becomes still, it gets easier to see what's beneath the surface. Sometimes we might like what we see, at other times, well, maybe not so much. Now, occasionally finding things we don't like may sound off-putting, but it's really important because it's part of letting go of those things. Accepting what's in our mind also helps us to be less critical of ourselves. It can even help us to be less critical of others. So we start to feel more content in life, to experience more harmonious relationships, and to be more at ease with the world around us.
So one of the reasons I like that clip is because I also found an article that, you know, mindfulness is a skill that reduces stress, obviously, but there's one important component specifically of mindfulness that has been found to be most successful in reducing stress. And that is the concept of mindful acceptance that we've talked about before. And just not assigning, in that non-judgmental acceptance, right? Not immediately assigning positive or negative feelings to events that are happening to us. You know, stressful situations come up. And so how we as mindful people kind of deal with that is we don't immediately equate that stress, right, with negative feelings. Now, if that stress is causing you, you know, insomnia or, you know, stomach aches or physical feelings, that's obviously a negative experience, but it doesn't have to necessarily go that far. And often we kind of push it that far by assigning all of these negative feelings towards it right away, right? So this study that found that acceptance was so beneficial researched 137 stressed adults, various ages, and one of 3 programs, an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course, which is something that I found very easily online. So if that's something that interests you, you could absolutely sign up for that, where they learn to mindfully pay attention to their present moment experiences and accepting non-judgmental way. An MBSR course without instructions on acceptance, so where that wasn't one of the core tenets, and no course. The course included many lessons, you know, how to pay attention to your breath and body sensations, which I think is what most people think of when they think of mindfulness or meditation, how to eat food or take a walk mindfully, as well as practice time outside of class. So before, during, and after, participants reported 5 times daily about how stressed they felt in the moment and whether they experienced a stressful event since their last report. And what they found was learning how to accept your present moment experience is really important for reducing stress. It seems to be the key element of mindfulness training. And I think that's really applicable to what we're going through right now and what Diana was talking about. You know, we've talked before about how recognizing things that are and are not in our control and not stressing about the things that are not. And that's much easier said than done. But what is a component of not stressing about it is that acceptance. So, and this is something that I've really applied and has been really helping me maintain a positive and hopeful attitude with everything going on. You know, obviously things have changed a lot. I'm working from home all the time. You know, I'm limiting the times I'm leaving home to run errands versus I used to go to the grocery store 2 or 3 times a week. Just to, you know, get fresh produce or what I was inspired to cook. So there's been a lot of changes. And I think a lot of people's gut reaction is to say that these changes are bad and to be stressed out about all these changes. But I've really kind of just taken the mindset of accepting that this is what life is right now. But that doesn't mean I need to necessarily be more stressed or more reactive to what's going on. It's just accepting that this is the reality for right now, taking it one day at a time and having just that hope. Diane talked a lot about hope in her segment as well, just that hope that, things will work out in the end, right? My mom, whenever I'm stressed out about anything, always, used to tell me, things just have a way of working out. And just maintaining that hope, but that acceptance is a really big piece of dealing with the stress in the meantime. So I just wanted to make sure if you're struggling with mindfulness, if you're struggling with meditating, this concept of acceptance is extremely important, to accept difficult experiences like stress, because they do happen. So when your mind gets really rushed and cloudy, just remember that clear blue water is still there. It's still possible, and not everything in our life is always going to be positive. But it doesn't have to be negative necessarily either, or create that stress, right? And resilient people are able to power through these times of stress. We heard Diana talk again about how this is an opportunity. And I think it's really important, especially when things might seem, different now than how they've ever been, reminding yourself of those periods of struggle and those periods of intense stress that you have made it through and probably thrived as a result, from the skills that you learned through going through that stress. A lot of times these circumstances can really teach us a lot about ourselves, or we develop the habits that we, with having this time, can develop the habits that we need in order to reach our goals, or take more time for that reflection. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be so negative. That kind of acceptance can really help. Now, she does talk about, how acceptance is not about acquiescing to your fate, like getting a diagnosis of a terminal illness and just accepting that you're going to die. That's not the kind of acceptance we're talking about. That kind of acceptance could lead to worse outcomes. Nor is it accepting poor treatment from other people. It's about accepting your internal experience, your mentality, your thoughts, and your feelings, which inform you how to respond to your external circumstances in wiser ways. Mindfulness is all about being more aware of what's going on in the mind and using it as a tool so that you're influencing your external in the way that you want to. You're being more purposeful about your external behavior because you're more aware of what's going on in your mind. So for example, if you feel angry and accept your anger in the moment, it may prevent you from lashing out at someone and help you see that your feelings are not their fault, right? So having that moment and just, realizing, I'm feeling very frustrated right now, maybe you give yourself a couple of breaths to calm down. But if you realize that you're frustrated, you're less likely to lash out at someone, right? Because that's not usually how we want to handle our feelings. So I found a reframing stressful situations with a short meditation. I realize we're going to go a little bit over, but I'll stay on after the meditation. So if anyone wants to share some thoughts for today, that we can before you guys get into that script practice and group lead gen. So I'll go ahead and get started with the meditation.
Lying down. Just going to start with the eyes open. Soft focus, just taking in the space around you in the room, no matter what's been going on, no matter what the mind is stressed with right now, no matter how the body feels. Just for a moment, letting go of all of that. Just focusing on the space around you without moving the eyes, just taking in the space. And just starting with a few deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, just feeling the body expand, the lungs, taking in fresh air. As the body exhales, just a sense of letting go of whatever's going on in the mind, in the body. Again, breathing in through the nose, and as you breathe out this time, just allowing the eyes to close, feeling the weight of the body press down. That contact, the surface beneath you. The mind probably is going to be quite busy if it's been very stressed out. Just allow the mind to do its own thing. So not trying to think about it, not trying to stop the thoughts, just allow the mind to do its own thing. We're going to bring all of the attention into the body. Noticing. So does the body feel heavy or light right now? Does it feel restless or still? Is there a sense of flow in the body, or do things feel a little bit stuck in some way? So not thinking about it, just noticing the sensation in the body. And starting at the top of the head, just gently scanning down. If the mind's very busy, but it feels difficult to gently scan down at a slow pace, you can just speed it up a little bit and just go multiple times down through the body. Just noticing what feels comfortable, what feels uncomfortable. Again, just allow the mind to do its own thing. If it wants to think about something, just let it think. Right now, just focusing the attention on the body. And as you scan, just starting to become more aware of the breath. If you find it comforting, just placing your hand on your stomach or on your chest. Just feeling that rising and falling sensation. We're just going to use this as a place for the mind to rest, or to rest our attention. As the thoughts come and go, just allow them to come and go. But the moment you realize you've been caught up or swept away by that thinking, just sort of mentally labeling it or noting it. Oh yeah, thinking. And then coming back to the breath again. Or if it's a physical sensation, you just go, oh yeah, okay, that's feeling. Letting go of it and coming back to the breath again. And as always, if you find it easier when you're following the breath, you can just count the breaths as they pass. So giving the mind lots of space. Just let the mind do its own thing. If it wants to think, let it think. The only time you need to note is if you have completely lost any attention on the breath, being distracted in some way. Just noticing whether it's thinking, or feeling has distracted you, letting it go and coming back to that sensation of the breath again. Remember not noting every single thought or feeling, just those times when you've been completely distracted. Otherwise, following the breath, allowing thoughts to come and go. Giving the mind lots of space as you just focus on that physical sensation created by the breath in the body. Just allowing the mind to think. It's almost as though that momentum, that energy, is just expelling itself. You just gently place your hand on the stomach, on the chest, as you feel that movement, the physical movement, the body under your hand. Perhaps an increasing sense of ease in the body, space in the mind. Knowing that process of letting go, that stress has at least begun. Slowly bringing the attention back to the body, back to that feeling of contact, weight. Noticing the space around you again, any sounds. And then when you feel ready, just gently opening the eyes again.
All right. So I hope that was all helpful for all of you, heading into your day today. Like I said, script practice starts in 20 minutes. So I'll give you time to, get some coffee, tea before that starts with Tiffany. Let me know if you have any questions. And if not, have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
No problem, Jayshree. No problem, Renzo. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
You too.
Bye, everyone.